From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Mr. Council, report taken on actions in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The closed session items that were on the agenda this morning, items 61 through 65. 64 was not held. That will be continued to next week. 61, 62, 63, and 65 were all conducted, and there was no reportable action out of any of those. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're going to kick off this afternoon's meeting with a review of the consent agenda. All items considered listed with a CA or a C above the item number are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. The CA represents the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors. The C represents the consent agenda for the Kern Sanitation Authority and the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the board or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anybody, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So we will start off with the we'll adjourn as the Board of Supervisors, or we'll do the Board of Supervisors consent agenda first. Let's do the Board of Supervisors consent agenda first. We'll start there. And that will start on page 2, items under Planning and Natural Resources Department, items 6, 7, and 7. Public Works Department, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 through 21. 22 and 23. Items CA 24 has been taken off consent, or will be taken off consent. Will be or has been? Okay, will. Okay, I'm anticipating will be taken off consent. Items 25 is on consent. 26 is on consent. Item 27 will be taken off consent. On the Public Works Department, items 28. On the County Administrative Office, items 30 through 42. On the County Administrative Office General Services Divisions, items 43 through 45. Consideration of ordinance introduced on August 30th, 2016, items 46 and 47. Matters for executive approval, items 48 through 52. So I'm looking for any member of the public who would be willing or wanting to take any of these consent agendas off the agenda. Now's your time. Yes, sir.
Number 30, number 40, 42, and 44.
Okay, 30. Could you say that again, please?
Yes, 30, 40, 42, and 44.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing, yes, sir.
Item number, on page, I'm not sure. CA 27, SD, number 5.
CA 27? Yes, sir. Got it? That would be pulled off.
Number 5.
You got it? Was there a number one for number 24? Yeah. Got it. We're all set. Was there another one someone wanted to pull item 24 off? Yeah. So you want to pull off item number 24? Okay, we'll pull off 24. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'm looking for a vote on the consent agenda of the Board of Supervisors, unless the Board of Supervisors want to pull one off. I don't see that. I'm going to vote on the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors to adjourn to the Board of Supervisors and to reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority.
Motion on consent with the exception of the items pulled.
Second.
Please cast your votes. Okay, we
Motion
now
is
sitting-
approved, all ayes.
We are now sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority. And on the Kern Sanitation Authority, we have two items on the consent item agenda, on the agenda. It's items 1 and 2. Is anybody in the public wanting to pull any of those two items off the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'm coming back to the board for a vote on the consent agenda and to adjourn as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District.
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your votes. We are now
Motion is approved, all ayes.
sitting as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District, and we have one item on the consent agenda, item number 3. Is anybody in the public willing or wanting to take this agenda item off consent? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for the vote on the consent agenda and to adjourn as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District and to reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
So moved.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, all ayes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to item number 4, the public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct the staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name before making a presentation. Anybody?
Good afternoon, Board. David Fluhart, Havilah, 1st District. Next week we have the new improved county-wide strategic plan, and I think that will be a very deep and passionate debate. A lot of it being between the lines that most people don't get, and sometimes with innuendos and sometimes with blunt demands. If the past is predictive of the future, it ought to be really, really a good long meeting with a lot of emotions going back and forth. Either way, I know it'll work out. It's written on the wall there. And one way of expressing my thoughts towards this whole thing is been to make a cute little, diagram. I call it Diagram A, and it's real simple. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. And this is it. Anyways, it's still confusing, and so I've worked on the diagram, and I'll forward that to you. I call it Diagram A 2.0, and it's about as simple as you get. And no. Trust me, we'll be talking about this next week. And when I think of the different aspects of what those lines represent, and the X and the Y being whatever you want to put in there, we definitely have a red line and a green line and a blue line, which is just reality. And to me, when I think of Kern County, it's a big jet, like a jumbo jet or a 747. And that red line is going to be a lot of circumstances that are without your control. And just things are going to bump into us, and it's going to make it harder and harder and harder. And to me, there's going to be a lot of issues next week about, where this board's going, and I think you guys are going in the right direction. I'll definitely say that right now. There's, I could give some quotes, and I'll save them for next week. And it's going to be busy next week, and I just wanted to give you some thoughts and support before everybody comes up here and talks. Unless, of course, it's a real nice, quiet, slow meeting. So, anyways, thank you. And here's the diagram.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else for public presentations? If you want to talk about your item that you pulled off, that'll come up in just a second. Thank you. We won't forget you. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public presentations. We'll bring it to board member announcements. Seeing none, we'll close that. We'll move on to item number 24. That comes under the Public Works Department, Building and Development. Continued hearing to make determination of public nuisance and order abatement involving change of land use, removal of inoperable vehicles, trash, junk and debris, and cleanup of property located on APN 179-040-09 Newmarket Road, Bakersfield. Who pulled that off? Yes, ma'am. Would you, Mr. Fenton, would you care to kick us off on that one?
Chairman Gleason, be happy to. As you indicated, this is a continued hearing involving Assessor's Parcel Number 179040-09 on New Markle Road. Back in December of 2015, your board continued it for 6 months. We heard it again in June. You continued it another 3 months. Again, involves the subject APN, which is owned by Richard D. Jacobs and Dina Baird. It's a 20-acre parcel. No primary use is established. My department's been working on this for over 9 years. 2 cases have been opened against the property due to storage of inoperable vehicles, a change of land use without approval, accumulation of trash, junk, and debris. The violations are still there. We revisited a couple of weeks ago, and little to no progress has been made, so we still feel it's in violation, specifically of County Ordinance Code Section 19.02.060, for a change of land use without Planning and Natural Resources Department approval or development standards being satisfied, and storage of inoperable vehicles in an area that's not zoned for that type of storage, as well as Section 8.28.110 for trash, junk, and debris. And so we're here today again to request your board determine that those violations I just mentioned do constitute a public nuisance as described by 8.44 of the Ordinance Code. We give them plenty of notice starting back in, well, again, a couple of cases have been going on since for 9 years, but the specific one, April 8th, 2013, again on October 14th, 2014. Final notice of the property owners on June 16th of 2015, and again, we've seen very little progress, if any. Inform the property owners through the notice and order that if they fail to abate it, and the county's required to abate it, we've estimated cost to be approximately $18,000 that would be assessed against the property and collected as a special assessment on the tax bill. We've also reviewed the environmental effects and determined that this action is exempt from further review under CEQA per sections 15061B2, 15061B3, 15301 of the CEQA guidelines. With that, obviously, the owners are here to talk about this, so it would be appropriate to open the hearing, unless you have questions for me first.
Thank you, Ms. Benton. Let's open the hearing. And anybody in the public wishing to make comment?
Yes, I'm one of the owners of the property, Dina Baird. This is Richard Jacobs, the co-owner. We've had this property since 2003 when we moved our equipment and cars and things out there because the land had been sold in Bakersfield. We appeared here in December and in June, got some extensions to remove those things, and we have removed some of them. We put ads in the paper. We've taken people out there, but it's way out by the Bena landfill, and it's really hard to get people to go out and look at things. We've come to the conclusion we need to get a dealer and get the things just moved off of there into Bakersfield somewhere to be sold, because this method of taking people out there has worked a little bit, but not very well. It's very time consuming. People don't show up. We have about a 40-year collection of vehicles and some equipment. We apologize for the unexpected delays. We've been trying to get as many of these things sold as possible. We do want to sell the equipment and vehicles and get the money out of it. We estimate there's probably $90,000 to $100,000 worth of things out there. We've also checked into local companies in an effort to package sell the rock and gravel equipment that we have out there, because we do have like a big 220 loader and some rock and gravel equipment. We need time to negotiate with some road construction people to complete this interaction in a business-like time frame, because we're working on that as well. It's not just junk, it's not just old cars. There's antique cars, cars from the 70s, 80s, equipment from Mr. Jacobs' father's rock and gravel and road company. We do need additional time to get it done. We have taken time. It just doesn't go fast. But we can't do it ourselves. We will use someone else to do it now and get it moved off there, because it hasn't worked trying to do it. It's worked slowly, but not fast enough. We need additional time, ideally as much as 6 months. Any additional time would be greatly appreciated. We do thank you for your consideration of this matter. That's it. Any questions? This is Mr. Jacobs.
Mr. Jacobs, you have something to say?
Yeah. The paving equipment is what you call pothole mix paving equipment. It's from a paving equipment plant that the county had been on contract with my father's company for 3 consecutive years with this equipment. It's not junk. The materials dryer takes a year to build. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Complicated construction equipment. It takes a year to build a plant like that. The state is going into a phase where they want to improve the roads all of a sudden, and why should perfectly good equipment be cut up when it could be donated to an extent to the state, to the federal government, to repair the roads coming up? And all I want out of it is the opportunity to get 2 10-wheeler loads a month for nothing if it's up and running, and at cost getting a material from it further, that I would have further need for tonnage off of that. So it's basically like I'm using it, but I'm not using it.
And the only other thing I wanted to say was about it talks about the debris.
The mixture's worth $25,000.
It talks about the debris and things in the ground. The land apparently was an old dump site years ago.
Correct.
And that was there when we got the property. That's not something we did. You can see like a metal this or that is sticking up here and there. But it was apparently used as a dump site for a number of years. And then they put signs up not to use it anymore and fenced it off. And then we got it. So we do just need...
There's also a open pit area for rock and gravel since the early 40s and back all the way to the railroad when they used it.
Yeah, years ago.
My property, that is.
But again, we just need some additional time. We know we've used time to sell a few things, and it's going slowly, but we need to change our method and get the things moved and sold. We've done all we can. We're almost 70 years old, and we can't do it ourselves anymore. It's not going fast enough.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your presence.
Can I give you an itemized amount for the dryer itself would cost on a used open market anywhere in the United States without transportation? Probably about $20,000, but that's neither here nor there.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else in the public wishing to make comment? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board.
That's mine.
Supervisor Scriven.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fenton, do you have the ability, you have several pictures of some of the vehicles that they reference, these classic cars, cars from the 70s and the 80s. Do you have the ability to put up on the screen any of the pictures that you have provided us in our packet, please? I'd like the board and the board and the public to have an opportunity to see what it is we're talking about out there.
If the clerk will help me, I think I can do this. Maybe. Yeah, these.
Just flip through them if you can, just periodically. If you want to make any comments, then feel free.
Supervisor Scrivener, through the chair, these are recent photos taken at the end of August. I have some prior to the previous board meetings, but these are the most recent. Let me throw up a couple others here that show a little bit more.
Some of the pictures of the vehicles, et cetera.
Yeah, there are obviously several vehicles out there, campers, and there is some equipment, some dump trucks. But you can see we've got quite an accumulation of stuff.
Okay, that's good, thank you. This has been a difficult case because I have wanted to provide every opportunity to Ms. Baird and Mr. Jacobs to remove these items on their own. It's true they did come in here on December 8th, 2015 and requested additional time. Staff's recommendation was for us to move forward with the abatement. I suggested to the board, made a motion that we give them an additional 6 months, which the board was gracious to agree with that and provided 6 months of additional time. And then when they came back 6 months later in June, they asked for another 6 months. We split the baby, so to speak, and gave them 3 more months. But what I wanted to point out is that this originally, there have been 2 cases at this property over the course of 9 years. This latest one, the first notice of violation was in April of 2013. So here we are 3 years later, and there hasn't been significant progress that's been made. Ms. Baird said they need to change their method, and with all due respect, the time to change your method was 9 months ago, when we gave you additional time, and we're asking you to take every means necessary to abate the property. Mr. Fenton, if we move forward with staff's recommendation, which is to abate this property, how much time do they have before we actually begin removal?
Supervisor Scrivener through the chair. The recommendation is to authorize the department to clean it up if they haven't cleaned it up within 30 days after the notice has been posted. So generally it's about 40 days or so by the time we get out there and post it.
So Mr. Jacobs and Ms. Baird, if there's a specific piece of equipment that you feel has value out there and that if you put it out on the open market, you would have the ability to sell it, you have 40 days. You're going to have at least 40 days to do so.
I don't want to cut up my father's tractor.
Mr. Jacobs, first of all, the hearing's closed, and I have heard your testimony, and I appreciate you being here, but this has been going on for over 3 years now for this one specific violation with truly no progress being made whatsoever. I mean, I don't know what your intentions are. I'm not going to speculate on what it is that you think you will get accomplished in another 3 months' time or 6 months' time, but the track record shows that you're not going to make any progress unless we actually put a hard deadline on you. And so in the next 40 days, I'm going to recommend to this board that we approve staff's recommendation and begin removing those items in the next 40 days, 30, 40 days, whatever it is. So that's my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Scrivener. Mr. Couch.
I'll support that, but I want to ask, in case I run into this in the 4th District, something similar to this, which I might, where will these vehicles be taken? What will become of them? How will it be disposed of?
Typically, we'll get a recycler involved, and they'll be recycled. I don't know specifically. I don't know if Mr. Rojas is nodding his head. Yeah, they would. If we initiate the cleanup, they will all be recycled. There's a possibility that when we get bids from a contractor, if they see a value in reselling or repurposing for something else, that's up to them, and that keeps our prices down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I have one last question. That gentleman's tractor, father's tractor, we can talk to him, we can personally talk to him, make sure he knows exactly what's going on before anything's done with that tractor, right?
Yeah, we can do that. And again, even
Tractor. It's an agriculture tractor.
even with your board's recommendation and the action today, if we see progress happening, we'll work with him the best we can. And if he wants to get rid of some of these other cars first while he's getting a plan lined up for his father's tractor, we're happy to help accommodate that plan the best we can. We just need to see something start happening out there.
Outstanding. We have a vote. We have a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Brings us to item number 27, hearing to make determination of public nuisance and order abatement involving demolition of fire-damaged structures, boarding and securing of remaining structures, removal of trash, junk, debris, vegetation and weeds, and cleanup of property located at 620 Water Street, Bakersfield, APN 125-090-10. Mr. Fenton.
Thank you. Chairman Gleason, this property is Assessor's Parcel Number 125-090-10. As you indicated, 620 Water Street. There's actually 3 or 4 different buildings. They're owned by Werner Epp and Sandra Epp, trustees of the Epp Family Trust. It's a 14-unit apartment complex. Over the years, we've been working on this for quite some time. They've been tagged. There's been a lot of criminal activity. We work closely with the sheriff out there. In fact, earlier this year, there was a murder at this specific property, and shortly thereafter, one of these apartment buildings burned down. The units have been tagged as unsafe, obviously, due to health and safety issues. Again, the county sheriff's department has requested code compliance to assist them on numerous occasions to keep the properties tagged as unsafe so they can better deal with the squatters and the vagrants who appear to be ongoing with criminal activity out in that area. The owners admittedly have tried to keep things boarded up, but they just can't keep up with it. There's also a swimming pool on the site, and the property, the fence protecting that pool or providing the pool barrier has been destroyed by the fire. Thus, the pool is unsecured, also posing another risk to the public. And so, Public Works Department, we've considered this to be a public nuisance, specifically in violation of the following sections. Section 3109.1 of the California Building Code for not maintaining required fencing around a swimming pool. 17.36.020 for structures becoming an attractive nuisance to children and/or a harbor to vagrants and criminals. Section 17.36.020 for a building or structure that's been damaged by fire, wind, earthquake, flood, other means, and also just becoming an attractive nuisance, as well as 17.16.020 for stagnant water that's remaining in the swimming pool, and 17.16.020 for open and unsecured structures and structurally unsound fences. I may as well keep going with 17.16.060 for lack of electrical service and exposed electrical parts. Section 8.46010 for the excessive accumulation of weeds. Section 8.45 for failure to conform with the abandoned property ordinance. 8.44.050 for failure to keep the property from creating a public nuisance, and 8.28.110 for trash, junk, and debris and accumulation. Therefore, today we are requesting your board determine that those same violations do in fact constitute a public nuisance per 8.44 of the ordinance code. Yes. This property owner was also notified by mailing of a 30-day notice and order in April of this year, again on June, and posted on the property also back in April and June. The responsible parties were notified that a public nuisance existed by mailing notice and orders in April and June as well. Final notice was posted in May. We believe the owner's been given a reasonable time period to abate the nuisances, but very little has happened. The notice and order informed the owner that they failed to abate it, and the county is required to go in there and clean things up. All costs is approximately $21,000, which should be assessed against the property and collected as a special assessment on the tax bill. Again, we don't believe that there's been enough progress being made. Therefore, we're requesting that the nuisance be abated by Public Works Department if the owner fails to clean this up within 30 days. An abatement would be demolishing the fire-damaged building, boarding up and securing the remaining structures, including the swimming pool, and removing all trash, junk, debris, weeds, and a general cleanup of the property. Staff has determined that this action is exempt from further CEQA review per 15061B2, 15061B3, and 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines. With that, I have Code Officer Dee Benson here. She's been working closely with Mr. Epp on this project. Mr. Epp is in the audience. Unless you have questions for me, I think it'd be appropriate to open the hearing.
Thank you, sir. Let's do that. Let's open the public hearing and let's hear from the public. If you'd have something to say about item number 27, now's the time.
I don't know what all those numbers mean, but distinguished Board of Supervisors, last time I was in front of you was in 1976 when you appointed me to the Central California Health Systems Agency for 5 counties. I served there until 1982.
Thank you, sir. Could you please state your name?
My name is Werner Epp. I represent the Family Trust for both my wife and who passed away, and myself. And some of this has been a problem with one of my neighbors there that was on the property and worked on the property apparently for another gentleman, unbeknownst to me, and has continually made a nuisance of himself, calling me, calling the county, calling Public Works, etc. Putting us on Facebook, putting us on threatening phone calls, etc., with his pit bulls on the property, etc. I'm not going to go into that part, but I just wanted to let you know that there's a background to this. I've been put down several times. My body has, by the vagrants, by the squatters, and by, I think I was hospitalized on another property. Mr. Rojas was involved with that, and I was almost killed on that one. As mentioned, this is gang-related somewhat, retribution with the fires of a squatter that broke into a boarded apartment 622, Water Street, Apartment D. And I will just note at this point that as of the 2nd of September, I finally got the insurance company to finish up their investigations, which, because the last ones were conducted on the 31st of August, and the lady from Sacramento came down, and they're fire investigators, and I was ordered not to be on the property because of asbestos and possibly other kinds of factors involved with removal of items. That was cleared up yesterday by the San Joaquin Air Pollution Board, and I am free now to go into the property and to remove the insides of the drywall, etc., so we can determine what kind of damage there is on the exterior inside framework. I do have several contractors that I'm involved with, one of which is from Santa Monica, who came up yesterday and is giving me strict advice on this kind of a project. Others have been not so gracious with the terms of wanting to deal with the property itself. The property had been boarded up a number of times. The 2x4s and the perimeter window coverings, door coverings have been removed. Some were sold across the street in the alley, found in the alley with our paint on it and our markings on it. It's been difficult for us. As far as the notification, they posted my name on the outside on a big CAD like this with name and my wife's address on it, which caused all kinds of problems for me, including getting into my bank accounts, my credit card, etc. And I just got a call 2 weeks ago from Nordstrom people in Denver who had the guy's name on one of their soliciting one of my credit cards, my wife's credit cards, wanting an extra card sent to my home address. So they've come into my mailbox, they've taken the stuff. I don't know how many of the items we have not received. I did get a packet, my mail yesterday evening, with some pictures in it, which I had requested some time ago, and I couldn't get that, but I got it now, which I appreciate. I've been involved with apartments and ownership, even though I'm a professional person, since I was in grad school, 1962, and I've owned property and managed property since that time, basically. At quite a young age, I was part of my family who took down the Japanese internment camp buildings in British Columbia, 140 miles east of Vancouver. So I have a little bit of history of hard work and so on, of this kind of a nature. But it's hard to work with an unknown quantity of gang-related elements, and that's been very difficult for me personally. I try to work with the county as much as I could in terms of my grieving process in the last 3 years especially. It's been difficult to work with Mr. Rojas, who will not return my telephone calls unless he answers the phone personally. And I've had 9 fires now since last July. The 16th, I believe it was, of 15 in different properties. They burned a house down in Mount Vernon of mine. which is also county related. They burnt this structure, the last ones, two fires in it. Retaliation apparently of some kind, as per fire department, of gang-related elements involving another property in the city. So I'm kind of against it somewhat, but I feel that I'd like to have at least the insurance that's involved here have their complete assessment that they have. I do not have that copy yet. It's in the mail, emailed to me. I couldn't open their attachments, and my CPA got it today. I think he's got it. He's supposed to have it this afternoon. In terms of the swimming pool, there's no water in the pool. We do drain it much as we can. Sometimes we don't get it right away. The gates were locked to the pool. The fences sometimes are unboarded and broken into. The chain link fence gets cut sometimes. The lock's been cut. I probably replaced 15 locks on that property at various times. We do have gates and in between the buildings and so forth. 2 of those have been ripped off. They're $1,000 a piece, and it's hard for me to address it. I kind of almost gave up on the property because I couldn't help get the proper support I needed. I felt I do have people that have worked it and have. Actually, yesterday they were onboarding the thing for that the contractors in from Santa Monica. In terms of the boards, all the windows were covered as of yesterday. They may not be today. The doors were sealed, but that's an ongoing kind of thing. I do have people that have cut 6-foot-high chain link fences that are above the ground on Water Street. So the top of that building, top of those fences are about 12 feet high, 6 feet above ground and on top of rock base. If you have pictures of it, you can kind of see what those are. I do like to request that we can kind of work together with the Public Works Department, and I'm not here to work against anybody, but I do like to have the support of them. B. Benson has been helpful, but I told her do not put my name and my wife's address on the posting of the outside with big yellow tags like that, which was done. It caused a lot of my problems. I've gone through 4 bank accounts now. I had to change them. They got into my bank accounts to well over $20,000, the last one. And it's hard for me to continue to operate anything, let alone my retirement that's taken out of my bank account for somebody else's payments of whatever they pay from, which I have a copy of. If you would like to see those, I'd be happy to present those to you. But I don't know. Titan company was employed by the insurance company to do the asbestos analysis. They're from Orange County. And they're the ones that determined there was a slight amount of asbestos in the roofing material, even though the roofing material was put on there in the latter part of 1980s. And I had to go through the county office, Public Works Department, and then go to the San Joaquin Air Pollution Board to get exonerated from as being mitigated by the requirements of an asbestos. But the inside of the building were properly tested, of 18 different tests made, but they were not found to be in violation of the asbestos and the.
If we could kind of get to the conclusion of your remarks.
So, in summary, I've boarded the place up. I've got 2 guys that do that, and they go around there every day and seal up the doors if somebody does come back to the property. I like to have like 60 to 90 days extension on this time so we can get the proper contractors and take the roof off and get involved with the interior of the damaged property. As far as the other property concerned, those are minor compared to although I have 2 that are electrical in nature that the homeless have torn out, breakers, so forth.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. If you have a seat, we may have some questions for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your participation today. Anybody else would like to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it to the board. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, Chairman. Greg, I was hoping you could respond to some of the assertions that were made today. I and my staff are very familiar with this property as well as others that I understand have been non-compliant for some time. I'm sure that you know, Greg, my office has received multiple complaints over a lengthy period of time on behavior and negligence that I find to be particularly troubling. With that said, I would appreciate your remarks given the testimony you just were provided.
Certainly. Supervisor Perez, through the chair, it's a big project. He's got, the couple of buildings out there, 3 buildings, and he has tried to keep them boarded up. It's just nonstop. I don't know how many times Officer Benson has been called out with the sheriff for all the illegal activity going on out there. And then he did have the fire, which is a big concern because a lot of that structure is still kind of hanging up in the air that hasn't been knocked down, and I'm afraid it's going to. We do have the pool, although it's been drained, there is some nuisance water in the bottom that does pose a risk, and there was a chain link fence around it, but it is not secured. It's not intact, so it does appear that the pool is exposed, and that one really concerns me as well. So I am glad to hear that he has talked to somebody about asbestos. Sounds like he's moving forward to trying to make some repairs or get things cleaned up in the structures that didn't burn. And of course, we'd be happy to work with him on that. My main goal right now is to get the burn building down to the ground and the swimming pool secured. And if he's working on boarding up and ideally, fixing up and renting out the vacant units, I missed what his game plan is there. But it is the definition of a public nuisance right now. It is an attractive nuisance, a public nuisance, and a harbor for criminal activity.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to clarify that attractive nuisance does not mean that it is physically attractive, but it is kept in such a manner that it tends to attract. Often the term is used to describe areas that attract small children or unsuspecting individuals that are then harmed and not properly warned of the potential danger on the property. So I just want to clarify for my colleagues, this is not attractive. It's the opposite. But it does tend to attract young people, animals, folks that have a hard time taking care of themselves. So, Greg, can you reiterate your recommendation moving forward? Because I have a very clear sense about the problems associated with this property. Like I said, my staff yields many calls involving complaints, and I think it's unfortunate that matters have not been addressed. But can you reiterate your recommendation, please?
Sure. The recommendations before your board today is to make a finding this project is exempt from further CEQA review per 15061B2, 15061B3, and 15301 of the CEQA guidelines. Adopt the resolution declaring the fire damaged structures, open and unsecured structures, and accumulation of trash, junk, debris, and weeds on the property a public nuisance. Direct the Public Works Department to post and mail the resolution and notice of determination pursuant to Ordinance Code Chapter 8.44, and if those nuisances are not abated within 30 days after the posting and mailing of the resolution and notice of determination, authorize the Public Works Department to use the abatement funds to award bids for demolishing the fire damaged structures, boarding and securing remaining structures, removing the trash, junk, debris, and weeds, cleanup of the property, and to perform the necessary inspections and performance with that abatement contract.
Thank you, Mr. Fenton. That will be my motion. I respectfully ask for the support of my colleagues. Thank you.
We have a motion. Looking for a second.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 29 under the County Administrative Office. Proposed reorganization of Parks and Rec Department into a Division of General Services effective November 1st, 2016. Mr. Nyland.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon. As you mentioned, this is a request that your board approve the integration of General Services and the Parks and Recreation Department. This action would reorganize Parks into a division of General Services, allowing each organization to share resources and achieve long-term savings through attrition and combining parallel functions. Among your board's goals for 2016 was to analyze the possibility of a merger of General Services and the Parks and Recreation Department. There are many instances around the state where Parks is a division of General Services, so this is not a unique situation. Ventura, Yolo, and Tulare counties are a few examples of where Parks is a division of General Services. At your board's direction, General Services and Parks were tasked with exploring opportunities and challenges of the potential merger of these county services and held a number of meetings. Should your board decide to merge the departments, it is recommended that the merger officially take place on November 1, 2016, approximately 1 month prior to Director LaRue's retirement at the beginning of December. This implementation date will give the departments time to have staff meetings, evaluate opportunities for effectively combining services, and determine where and how to consolidate staff assignments prior to the merger. It is anticipated that after this evaluation period, General Services will come before your board around mid-year to discuss changes in organizational structure, job classifications, and anticipated savings to be realized. While it is anticipated this action will lead to overall savings to the general fund, it may be a number of years before the full savings are realized through attrition, automation of services, and additional changes that may require upfront costs to implement. Therefore, it is recommended that your board approve the reorganization of General Services and Parks and Recreation Department, creating a Parks Division within General Services effective November 1, 2016, and direct County Council to draft the necessary ordinance changes to the Kern County ordinance codes. And as you are aware, both Mr. Farwell and Mr. LaRue are present to answer questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nyland. Any questions before we move to public hearing? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing for your thoughts regarding this issue. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is, good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Norma Jackson, Jackson, and I am a member of the Heritage Commission, which is under the umbrella of Parks and Recreation. We are a small, select group thoroughly committed to our American and Kern County heritage. And I know Bob does approve of the merger. If the board does approve it, I strongly hope that General Services will let the Heritage Commission blissfully continue our activities at the Liberty Bell from 12 to 1 so as not to disturb the court, and just continue on with our activities without undue problems from General Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. LaRue, do you have a comment to that?
Mr. Chairman, we don't see an issue with that. We will need to work out through the transition, both the Heritage Commission, the Wildlife Commission, and the Parks and Recreation Commission, that communication structure so that we can continue on with really no issues.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, does that satisfy your concerns?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the public like to make comment? Thank you. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comment consideration. Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. First of all, those were the concern that was brought up by Ms. Jackson was consistent with the concern that I had, was how we would continue on with these various commissions. And my understanding is that they would remain in place, but of course the details would have to be worked out exactly how those would be administrated. I know that Mr. LaRue serves as an ex officio type capacity on those, or at least participates in those hearings and staffs them, et cetera, et cetera. The second concern that I have is and I'm in favor of this, first of all. I mean, I've advocated for this on a few occasions in this forum because I see the role of the Parks and Recreation Department having changed over the years, largely due to budget cuts. Mr. LaRue, I'd just like to get a brief comment from you. You are the Parks and Recreation Department, but when was the last time the county actually had a recreation component, any kind of programming, et cetera, in your memory?
Supervisor Scribner, through the chair, that actually occurred in 1978 prior to Prop 13. Was the last time that we had recreation staff.
Right.
We provide what we call opportunities for recreation at our facilities.
Yeah, but as far as having programming and those kinds of things, we haven't had the ability to provide that for many years, and a lot of what you are doing is basically managing facilities, which is what General Services does. I know there are other things, of course, and I'm not trying to diminish what the department does, but to me this seems like a natural fit because of the budget constraints on the county and what we can see for the foreseeable future. The types of cost savings and efficiencies that I think that we can achieve through this merger are going to be important for us. We've had success with Public Works, we had success with Board of Trade and with ETR, and so I think that this is another step forward in that direction. And so, but as I was going to say, one of the things that you do so well, Mr. LaRue, is that's in working with the public, and so that's going to be a challenge for us moving forward, is how we continue to maintain that customer service oriented philosophy that you have had. I mean, you really are, your shoes are going to be very hard to fill. I mean, you've been the type of department head for us that basically we can task you whenever there is a situation that needs to be addressed, a fire that needs to be put out. You've done a marvelous job in going in and working with the public, and so that's going to be sorely missed by me, and I know by this county. And so that I know will be a challenge for us, and that's one of the things that we are going to have to work through as we work through all the other details with this transition. But in concept, I think this is a good idea. I think that we will achieve cost savings, and I think that through the streamlining of the maintenance components, et cetera, I think that we will believe in the next several years to come that this was a good move. So I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Scribner. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm still working to try to convince Bob LaRue to stay, so I will not give up on that until the bitter end. But with that said, I have to express incredible gratitude for what appreciation you give in acknowledging what parks are, what they mean, how important they are for neighborhood development, neighborhood interaction, community engagement. You totally get that. You always have, and that is tantamount in the work that you do, the successes that we've had together. So I am concerned, but I am hopeful that in moving forward, Jeff, that philosophy maintains central to what a park is, why we care about parks, and why the community is so incredibly passionate about their parks. And I'll tell you, of all the issues that I have ever heard from constituents across the board, parks are the #1 issue. Folks want better parks, they want nicer spaces, they really believe that their tax dollars should be funding a beautiful park and keeping it clean. So it really is a major issue to constituents and to taxpayers that I hear consistently across the board. And it's been delightful, Bob, to have the partnership we've had, because together we've raised private dollars. Together we've sought grants. Together we have sought federal dollars and state dollars to improve the condition of our parks, in recognition that folks that do not live within a mile of a park tend to be more obese, tend to be less healthy, have shorter life expectancy. Those things are very clear and even codified in research today. So there are so many benefits from maintaining a healthy park system, and I am again so grateful. I want to make sure it's a priority, Jeff, as we move forward. I want to pledge my support to you to be active and proactive in improving the parks in the 5th District, and of course your job will be beyond the 5th, but we certainly have a lot of work to do still in the 5th, and it's a major priority of mine. So I want to say again, Bob, job well done. I'll be meeting with you again next week to try to convince you to stick around. But if you don't, I think we'll be in good hands with Jeff. I believe we will have improved beautification of our parks as we consolidate these resources and do more with less. So I look forward to seeing that under your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Perez. Supervisor Maggart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could someone explain to me the savings that we will recognize as a result of the proposed integration of one department to the next? I have a number of questions, but What will the citizens of Kern County save as a result of this?
I'll start, and I will ask Mr. Frappel and Mr. LaRue to pitch in. It's that a couple things. First of all, the elimination of a department head position provides immediate savings to the county. We also recognize that there are some maintenance folks and some other folks, administrative folks, that do similar tasks. So through the analysis, we should be able to find more savings. You know, I like to look at, for example, public health over the last 3 years has saved $2.4 million in general fund contribution. That's a 43% discount. Jeff's looking at me. I'm not expecting the 2.4 over the next 3 years, but I'm expecting to see a great deal of savings and efficiencies, and hopefully the provision of services to the public continues at the highest level. And I'd certainly turn it over to both of those to comment.
Supervisor Maggard, through the chair. I think in addition to those noted by the CEO, you know, things that we are looking at in the immediate term are some redundancies we have with respect to sending staff to some of our outlying areas to do maintenance repairs. For instance, our general services has historically been responsible for all things related to the facility except for the grounds. There have been times, and although Bob's staff and my staff has done a great job over the last 5 years trying to integrate and coordinate in a better fashion, but there are times where he may be sending a maintenance person to a park which is adjacent to a facility which I've sent a maintenance person there to do a maintenance project. So there's opportunities like that, I think, to look at the better allocation of resources on how we deploy those throughout this vast county. So that is another opportunity, I think, that we'll see some immediate savings. As we move forward and we look at this, subject to your board's approval today, we'll be looking at ways to reduce the overall amount of equipment that we have. You know, we both have equipment, both vehicles as well as maintenance type of equipment that we both operate and maintain, and so are there ways to reduce the volume of that? That savings is realized by not having to replace equipment as it reaches its end of its useful life. There's opportunities to address safety and security within this facility with respect to training, with respect to the ranger program and our security attendant program. There's opportunities for looking at, on a holistic way, the way that we prioritize our overall maintenance funds that are provided by your board each year, and make sure that we're targeting those that have the greatest both safety concerns as well as return on investments, such as energy efficiency programs and water efficiency programs. We've done a very deliberate and active program for our county facilities. We need to expand that into our park facilities. So I think there are opportunities. I'm committed to find those. And I think we can identify those and over time find some real operational and cost-effective savings for the department.
And Supervisor Maggard.
There you go.
Supervisor Maggard, through the chair, Mr. Frappwell has mentioned a few of those items where we have those commonalities with similar type functions. I might mention an example. I serve as the chair on Keep Bakersfield Beautiful for the Graffiti Abatement Committee, and we have one of his staff comes to our monthly meeting. As an example, they send people to the outlying area, specifically in the Roseman, Mojave area, to get rid of graffiti when we actually have people in our parks who take care of our own graffiti. So there's a perfect example where they would not need to send somebody and our people could actually do the graffiti abatement. But I want to also be realistic. I think it's important to say this. Our department, as the board is aware, has made many cuts over the years. When we've cut approximately 50% of our staff, and you've cut many things prior to cutting staff, there's not a lot of things that can be cut further. However, we seem to find ways year after year, i.e. going through the privatization model in our outlying areas that have really reduced those costs, using many of those work program areas. So I think we can continue to do that under the leadership of Mr. Frappwell once I'm gone. And we've got some very talented staff that seem to find ways that, you know, maybe 10 years ago when we had those staff and those resources and we said, oh, we can't cut, and look where we are today. today, and we're still operational. So I think there's always places we can make cuts and find ways to do the job more efficiently.
While you're at the mic there, Mr. LaRue, Bob, I want to say thank you as well for the life's blood you've given us over the years and the dedication you've given to the people of Kern County. Thank you for that, and I wish you well in what you're about to do after you leave. I know a little bit about what you're about to do after you leave, and you might be busier, but I bet you make less money because nobody's going to pay you to volunteer. But we're grateful for what you've done for us. I am open to the prospect of the savings that we can achieve, but I'd like to establish some way to hold some accountability for establishing that we have indeed accomplished some savings. So I'm looking for how you can report back to us what those are. I'm also looking for how to be assured that we don't have savings just because nobody looks anymore. I am in our parks very, very often. The park that I see that is used the most often is Panorama Park. It has hundreds and hundreds of people a day that are in that park. It's heavily used, in pretty good shape for the amount of usage that it receives. There are other parks that are more remote that I think people rarely look at, and I don't want these to just languish and fall into disrepair because nobody knows to go look at them, to check them out. So I'm not suggesting somebody do that on purpose. There's just so much to it. There's so much area. They're so diverse and so spread out that it worries me that they're going to, by omission, be neglected, not by commission that they would be neglected, but just because nobody thought about looking at them. So I need some assurance that we have that in hand, and I'm not hearing yet how we're going to accomplish that.
Supervisor Magg, the chair again. I'll start out with this conversation. I know as environmental health, or I should say public health is doing, and as Public Works is doing, and our other departments, we will expect Mr. Frappel to come forward annually, if not semi-annually, to tell you about the progress and the savings. Mr. Frappel, just in the initial due diligence, visited every park in Kern County. He knows exactly what they look like. He's put together a plan, and he can share that plan with you as it relates to how to upgrade the parks or other opportunities for improvement. Now, he has spent a great deal of time doing this analysis and finding parks that aren't even on Google, if you can imagine that. And I am confident that he will bring forward a plan of action for your board to consider as it reviews all of its budget and allocation of resources with regard to those very parks. And some of them, the county may want to consider options, and I think that's part of this whole due diligence process, and I think you'll be very pleased with the process and how it's going to work out. So again, I would leave it to Mr. Frappel and Mr. LaRue to comment.
Supervisor Magg, through the chair, I think I look at this very much the way I do the county's 300-plus facilities that General Services is currently responsible for. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've developed a very data-driven matrix and scoring and methodology for identifying operational and maintenance needs in our facilities. It is no longer, what building do I remember seeing that had a problem? It is a method that looks at the facility, what we call facility condition assessment. It looks at the components within our facilities, puts timelines and age of the different mechanical equipment so that we can do a better job looking forward proactively and identifying where those needs are and where those maintenance dollars should be prioritized. I guess in response to your question is that is something that we would need to do within our 45-plus parks that Parks is currently responsible for. If your board merges that into General Services, we'd be very deliberate action to look at those parks. As Mr. Nylon mentioned, my staff and I did take the opportunity in the January-February timeframe to go visit each of the county parks, and I have been around the county for a number of years, and one of them I had never seen or nor knew that we owned. So they're certainly out there in the hinterlands of Kern County, but I think in response to your question, it takes a very deliberate process to understand, quantify, and be able to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, keeping your board informed where our priorities are.
Okay, I'm comfortable enough with that for today. One last question about our staff. Are there any employees that will lose a job as a result of this transfer?
And Supervisor Magner, to start out again, it is not anticipated at this point because of this merger, but as we face greater and greater significant budgetary purpose issues, we certainly cannot promise that we won't face layoffs in the future.
And with our hard hiring freeze, if there is attrition in this department, I would hope that you would, of course, make us aware of it, but we need to recognize all the ways we can save. But if that can be, I don't want, there may be other reasons that we have to reduce our staff in the county. I don't want this to be an automatic cause for that. If that is going to be the consequence, I want us to be presented with that question separately. So you'll do that, won't you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Magner, through the chair, I might just make a comment that some of the things that we've been doing here over the past few months with general services that I think will help with the transition and goes right to your point in terms of communication and making sure that those parks are not forgotten, those facilities are not forgotten. We've had some of Mr. Frappwell's staff actually attend our commission meetings, Park and Rec Commission, Wildlife Commission, Heritage Commission meetings, so they understand kind of what we do at each of those commissions. The other thing that we've been doing recently is their staff discussing with our staff some of those commonalities and some of those facilities, and we've used their staff in some of the projects where they've either got staffing or equipment and vice versa. So I think we've got a good start to it, but I think the structure that what you're talking about in terms of making sure that those things continue, we currently have a meeting planned for Friday if your board recommends to move forward, and another meeting next Wednesday simply to talk about things like the organizational structure and communication so that those things are not lost and we can make sure those operations continue as they are.
Since we're talking about our facility, Mr. Lord, I'd like you to take 2 minutes and speak to the issue of Sam Lynn Ballpark, the vacation of the facility by the Blaze, and the Major League Baseball has some standards. While our park doesn't meet bigger Major League Baseball standards, Sam Lynn is a marvelous facility that many people would like to use. So can you just speak for 2 moments about that transition and how we're going to make sure it's secured when there's nobody from the Blaze walking around inside the fence every day? How do we make sure people aren't going to damage and diminish the jewel that we have there?
Sure. Supervisor Magner, through the chair, I've actually been doing a few interviews on that very topic. We've actually met with the Blaze staff, and so there's some transition going on with equipment as an example, and one of the things that we are continuing on is with the security system that they have in place. We're not sure exactly the timing to get the lessee or lessees in place. However, this past week, General Services staff and myself met with the Pecos League out of Arizona, New Mexico, and 80% of their players come from California, and they'd love to get a team in California. They are very interested and would love to have a team. However, they use or would use the facility 4 months a year, not the entire year. This week we are meeting with Northwest Baseball that has the 10-12 ball diamonds right next to Sam Lynn Ballpark. They've shown interest, and they've shown interest in the past in terms of managing it so they can have their World Series of Babe Ruth there if they had a facility like that. We also have had interest in the Kern High School District because every year they have their spring tournament and have worked with the Blaze in the past. So they've shown interest for tournaments and kind of their top games of being at a top facility. We also have another interest from an individual who has an academy that we're trying to work out a meeting time to actually see if it will work out. At the end of the day, I'm thinking we may have a few lessees in there to use that facility, really baseball-oriented, similarly to what it's been used in the past, just not at the minor league level that the Blaze were.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your attention to that.
Thank you, Supervisor Couch.
I concur.
Okay, do we have a motion? Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice President, sorry.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Lastly, Jeff, one of the most exciting projects that Bob and I have had the privilege of working on together is to take outside state money, so not general fund money, and through the AB 109 process, hire on, or not hire on, but bring on as help to the Parks Department. Gentlemen leaving the criminal justice system and wanting some work training, an opportunity to earn a small stipend that went towards their felony fines and fees. And in so doing, provided essentially free labor to the county and the park systems. The Community Corrections Partnership is still very excited about this project. It's been a small project, but it's one in which we've been able to enhance cleanliness and get some outside labor into the parks, and also give these guys an opportunity to learn about all of the details associated with park maintenance and earn some certificates, get some funds to pay off fines and fees so they can rebuild their lives. It has been very exciting. Bob has been a huge leader and cheerleader for that, and which is why it has worked, because of the credibility and passion that he brings to the table. So we have so many options and opportunities to grow the amount of people that are taking responsibility for their parks, and in so doing save money and be efficient, but really continue to incorporate the responsibility of the community to be a part of their parks in its cleanliness. So just a thought. With that said, I am excited and I look forward to the partnership. I think you've heard from this board, parks are a top priority for us, and certainly the taxpayers of this community. So thank you, and I'm sure you always look forward to more work. Jeff, it's always nice, right?
We love a challenge.
Excellent. So do we have a motion, Chairman? Okay,
No, I don't think so.
I would move this staff recommendation.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Congratulations. Okay, we're going to hear items 30, 40, 42, and 44 simultaneously because they were pulled by one individual. I don't know if he's still here. Yeah, he's here. So let's start off with item number 30, which is the proposed retroactive agreements with Alzheimer's Disease Association of Kern County in the amount of $30,134. Arts Council of Kern in the amount of $46,360. Bakersfield Museum of Art in the amount of $23,180. Bakersfield Symphony Orchestra in the amount of $46,360. Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired in the amount of $18,114. Community Action Partnership of Kern County in the amount of $46,360. Kern Literacy Council in the amount of $9,619. Valley Fever America's Foundation in the amount of $23,180. And Volunteer Center in the amount of $4,636 for fiscal year 2016-17 contributions. Then we'll go to number 40 is the continuation of local emergency due to drought conditions. Item 42, AB 2691 Holden authorizing monthly property tax billing for disabled and senior citizens. And item number 44, proposed agreement for lease with the Wainwright 1995 Trust for Sheriff Substation Space at 617 Monterey Trail in Fraser Park from September 13, 2016 for a term of 5 years. Mr. Allen, we start off with you because you were number 30. We'll just kick you off and then we'll let Mr. Fluart jump in.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the agreements that he's talking about were adopted by your board 3 weeks ago and are consistent with our process and procedure for funding programs like that. I don't know what the concerns are.
Thank you. I also don't think staff should comment on 40, 42, or 44 until we hear from the concerns from Mr. Fluart. The gentleman pulled them up. So Mr. Fluart, please come forward, if you don't mind. State your name and speak your piece.
All right. Good afternoon, David Fluhart, Havilah, 1st District. The item number 30 is, about the budget, about donations to good community groups and whatnot. And I just wanted to notice this. That in the last, couple of years ago, this was an issue at the budgets that were really thick. And I remember listening to people discuss this for 2 or 3 hours, and it was the issue of the day. And I wanted to say it's a good job that this was resolved nicely and there was no issues. And that's a good job of negotiations by your CAO and all the parties. partners that usually get this money, and you know, I wanted to stop for a second and say how nice this is that we don't have to discuss it, because next year it might be different. You know, next year people have sworn that they're going to close libraries and I don't know, probably lead to parks, probably lead to some of these things, whatever, you know, and they're going to argue for closing these things down and making it tougher, and try and push you to a decision, and you guys have already made that decision, and I appreciate it, and you guys have I don't know, this is awesome. That's why I wanted to stop and slow down about. No issues or concerns, just a nice, good thank you and good job, because next year it might not be the same. And I'll move to number 40, which is the drought. You know, a drought emergency. An emergency is basically an immediate situation that requires an action. And in this case, we pass this every month. We don't talk about it, but in passing it, it enables the county to make certain changes and to be nimble in correcting an ongoing problem. Anyways, and I'm kind of worried about this. I personally know for the last 8 years, I have never gone 90 days in this county without some sort of water hitting my head. And it's just not happening. So a different kind of action, I would say. Justified action is, and this is kind of funny, since we're done with phase 2 of the airports, I can talk silly about other things, and I'm going to choose the drought, because I think it's pretty serious, and it's number 1 on a growing list of emergencies that all kind of somehow relate to this, but so here we are talking about the drought. Anyways, since before we could write, rain's been a spiritual factor. We've had rain gods and rain dances. We've got poetry about rain. We've got songs about rain. I got a couple of quotes, but I won't read them. Anyways, as far as rain goes, it's spiritual, and I got a book here. And personally, I like the cheapest one. It's $1 at any 99-cent store, and it's really worth it. It's a lot of pages and good reading and whatnot. But it's a thick book, and it's hard to read and get through and whatnot. So I like to focus on just the beginning, middle, and end sometimes. I'm a teacher, and sometimes I tell my students, if you're going to cheat on reading the book, at least read the first page, the middle page, and the last page. Okay, yes. And I know it's kind of awkward, but if you look at the last page, it comes in at the middle of a paragraph, but the concluding sentence of that paragraph is, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And so at some point, I'm trying to do an action for an emergency, and I know it sounds goofy. We're done with the runway airport too, so I can talk goofy about other things, but anyways, focus on first, middle, last, and on the last page, first part of that last page is the leaves shall heal the nations. And
you also pulled number 42?
Yes, I pulled number 42 too, and this one's kind of funny. It's basically asking your board to write to your legislature to not vote for basically AB 2691, which is basically, I guess, wanting the tax man to hit up the elderly and disabled every month instead of twice a year. And this one's funny, you know, when I first started coming here, it would always throw me off when I'd get in the elevator and somebody would come on the elevator and they'd get off on the second floor and they'd ask me where the tax office is, and right out the door and go to the right. And, you know, it's really kind of tough when they're elderly and beat up people, you know, and it's hard enough to make taxes, and if the state wants to you know, make them do it every month, you know, that's kind of crazy. And I'm not even really worried about that, because I know you guys are going to say, no, we don't want them trying to make it here every month. But what's crazy is that there's other factors towards our budget than what you can control, and this is just an example of the state or the federal government pushing something onto us that we don't like, but we're going to have to swallow if they pass it, and it's just a liability. And when I think of the future in our budget, something's just going to be out of our control, and I know we plan for the best. I drew a line. It's the optimistic possibility, and then there's another line which is probable, you know, or realistic probability. And something like this, as stupid as it is, it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. And it's really kind of sad. You know, some things they give to us is really good. Some things is just a disaster. And this one's a disaster. You know, making them show up once a month, crazy. And then I didn't even go off my notes, so I'm missing something. I know it. But anyways, 44 is basically extending a lease for the substation in I'm trying to think of where is this substation?
Fraser Park.
Fraser Park. Thank you, Mr. Couch. You know, earlier we heard people crying about your 5% across the board cut, which isn't an across the board cut. You know, you're not a faceless bureaucracy. You guys definitely handled the situation and gave where money was desperately needed, and that's good. And I wanted to say that you guys do support the sheriff, and you guys will work the end around whatever needs to be done to get it done, and that's what we need right now. And thank you. Good job. That's it. I don't know if anybody needs to come up here and discuss anything. It's no issues. I just want to say good job and give you guys all the support there is.
Thank you, Fluff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone in the public wishing to make alternative comment? Yes, ma'am. On those issues, on those particular items that Mr. Fluff brought up?
Motion to approve item number 30.
Did you have something to say about item number 30?
No, item 42.
Okay, speak about fire.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there are a great many people, elderly citizens in Kern County and throughout California, who are on fixed incomes. Their homes are mostly paid off, so they don't have impound accounts. And to just be able to pay their property taxes twice a year is a hardship for a lot of people. If they could make monthly payments, or even not necessarily monthly, but just other than just twice a year, I think would be a good idea, and it would really help the seniors out.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I'm sure that's an purview of our board, but thank you for those comments. I'm going to close the public hearing and go to individual votes on all four issues that we just discussed. The first one is, I think we have a motion already on item number 30.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, all ayes.
The next one is a motion on item number 40.
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Excuse me, motion is approved, all ayes.
Thank you. Next one is item CA 42.
Motion.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, all ayes.
Next item is 44.
Motion.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Thank you. Motion is approved, all ayes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our agenda to adjourn to Tuesday, September 20th at 2016 at 9 o'clock.